Formula One fans, the damage Lewis Hamilton suffered to the floor of the SF-26 during his contact with Russell at Spa has revealed a hidden aerodynamic strength inside the Ferrari. And today, I'm going to walk you through every incredible technical detail of this discovery. Hamilton managed to maintain a competitive pace despite losing the entire left floorboard and its supporting strut. Components that under normal circumstances would have absolutely destroyed the performance of any other car on the grid. And here's where it gets truly paradoxical. Without that deflector, the SF-26 was actually generating an even dirtier wake behind it, making life seriously difficult for any driver trying to follow. Ferrari's aerodynamic concept is fundamentally different from everyone else's, with airflows directed upward rather than laterally, and that philosophy has just shown an incredible level of robustness. But the real headline story is the overall points haul across the Silverstone and Spa doubleheader. Ferrari brought home 81 total points against just 56 for Mercedes, and even fewer for Red Bull and McLaren. And this on two circuits that beforehand looked like they could be a complete disaster for the Scuderia. Now all eyes turn to Hungary, and Lewis Hamilton isn't hiding his enthusiasm at all, saying with absolute conviction, "I'm 100% optimistic. I think this car is going to be strong in Hungary." Vasseur is preaching tactical caution, but behind the scenes, the atmosphere at Maranello is electric. If you don't want to miss any updates on Ferrari and Formula One, leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date. With that said, let's dive straight into the detailed analysis. Let's start with the most stunning technical discovery of the entire Belgian weekend. During the contact with George Russell at Les Combes, Hamilton's Ferrari didn't just lose a small front-wing flow deflector. The most serious damage involved the left side of the floor with the complete detachment of the floorboard and its supporting strut, two absolutely fundamental elements for the correct aerodynamic functioning of the car. Under normal conditions, damage of this kind would have deeply altered the balance of the car, drastically reducing aerodynamic downforce and making the machine very difficult to drive through high-speed corners. And yet, none of that happened. Hamilton continued to maintain a competitive pace, and setting aside the other issues, a podium finish would have remained a completely realistic target. The SF-26 had lost something in terms of outright performance, but far, far less than anyone would have expected given the extent of the damage. Now let's look at the real technical secret that explains everything. The floor side panels of the SF-26 were designed with a completely different philosophy compared to every other car on the grid. Much of the work that Ferrari's deflectors do is not about pushing airflows laterally outward, but redirecting them upward to feed aerodynamic downforce into the floor. It's a solution that produces enormous downforce but reduces the outwash generated directly by the bargeboard area. And when the left floorboard detached completely, this balance shifted in a paradoxical way. A portion of the airflow, no longer controlled by the deflector, naturally began exiting laterally again, converting part of the lost downforce into natural outwash, which is exactly the kind of phenomenon the Federation had been trying to limit. The broken component was creating a loss of efficiency, but at the same time it was generating a compensating effect that significantly reduced the overall damage to performance. And now comes the most fascinating aspect of this whole story. Several drivers found it considerably harder to follow Hamilton in his wake after the floor damage occurred. Without the floorboard, the turbulence left behind the Ferrari increased noticeably. The car was losing part of its ability to clean up its airflows, generating a much more disturbed aerodynamic wake for anyone trying to follow. It was practically the opposite of what Hamilton himself was experiencing. He was losing some of his own efficiency, but the drivers behind him were dealing with even dirtier air and therefore a much harder car to control. There's also a second incredible technical element here. The tire squirt, meaning the turbulence generated by the rear tires, is contained on the SF-26 not only through the bargeboard design but also through the shape of the side pods themselves. Ferrari has entrusted a large part of its turbulence management to the overall side pod geometry, demonstrating an aerodynamic robustness that is simply superior to all its rivals. Now let's move on to the overall points balance that absolutely nobody expected heading into these two races. On paper, the Silverstone and Spa doubleheader should have been a bloodbath for the Scuderia. Two high-energy circuits packed with long straights. the worst possible scenario even according to sources inside Maranello itself. Instead, Ferrari closed out both rounds with a stunning total of 81 points, against 56 collected by Mercedes and just 36 by both Red Bull and McLaren. A remarkable figure that shows how the SF-26 project is following a development trajectory that is clearly leaving both McLaren and Red Bull behind. These aren't yet Ferrari's ultimate targets, with Maranello firmly focused on challenging Mercedes in the fight for the most important prizes, but just a few months ago, even reaching this point would have been literally unthinkable. Now let's look at the remarkable behind-the-scenes story of Charles Leclerc's race at Spa. From the very first laps, the Monegasque driver was reporting small micro-lockups under braking, and the Ferrari pit wall suggested he reduce the brake shape parameter by 1 point to vary the modulation of braking force. A surgical adjustment that solved the problem within just a few laps. Then, in the closing stages of the race, with Antonelli still hunting him down, Leclerc reported a loss of traction going against the trend of the entire weekend. To address the issue, the team advised him to act on the differential lock at the apex of corners, calling for a -1 setting, a small technical tweak that helped the car rotate better and reduce understeer. A masterclass in driver and pit wall collaboration that demonstrates an extraordinary level of technical responsiveness. Now let's look at Hamilton's masterful management of a heavily damaged car. The Briton had been complaining of a lack of power on the straights, but in reality he was suffering from the loss of downforce and efficiency caused by the contact with Russell, which resulted in increased drag. In the second part of his stint, Lewis also reported a lack of rotation on the Pirelli hard compound, a behavior induced by the layout of the Belgian circuit. The Ferrari pit wall stepped in and suggested an increase in engine braking, a doubly clever choice that both treated the frustrating understeer and, at the same time, recovered a greater amount of energy under braking. A piece of tactical intelligence that allowed the Briton to claim a fantastic fourth-place finish and 12 incredibly valuable points, moving back behind Antonelli in the Drivers' Championship standings. And we close with a look straight ahead to the Hungaroring, the next true frontier for the SF-26. The Hungarian circuit suits Ferrari's characteristics perfectly. Slow corners, very few straights, and a significantly reduced power unit impact compared to Silverstone and Spa. Lewis Hamilton is making no effort to hide his excitement, declaring openly to the Sky Italia microphones, "I feel optimistic and enthusiastic about going to Budapest with this car, 100%. I think this car is going to be strong in Hungary. Ferrari's objective in Budapest can only be the top step of the podium. If we find the ideal setup and don't make the kind of mistakes we made this weekend, then I think we can get to where we deserve to be," added number 44. Vasseur, on the other hand, is preaching his trademark caution. On paper, Silverstone and Spa also looked difficult. We have to keep the same approach and never assume the next one will be easy. Ferrari has come through the toughest doubleheader of the season, beating everyone in the point standings. The damage to Hamilton's floor revealed an astonishing aerodynamic robustness in the SF-26, with the upward flow philosophy and the side pod design leaving the entire paddock speechless. 81 points for Ferrari against 56 for Mercedes and 36 each for Red Bull and McLaren across the Silverstone and Spa doubleheader. Leclerc managed with technical masterstrokes through brake shape and differential adjustments. Hamilton saved by an increase in engine braking that resolved the understeer and recovered energy, Hamilton contesting the penalty handed out at Spa, and Vasseur preaching caution ahead of Hungary. But behind the scenes, the atmosphere at Maranello is electric. Hamilton 100% optimistic, and the Hungaroring is the perfect track for the SF-26. This fight is far from over.